And Tony, so I just want to get your thoughts on this debate that we're talking about raising the debt ceiling. I mean, you heard Doug's report, they're looking out, but this tells me that Standard & Poor's is saying, I don't have faith in either party to get this done.
Well, the American people are feeling the same way, and Standard & Poor's rating, while shocking as far as tradition is concerned, isn't shocking as far as facts are concerned. We've been on this downward trajectory for pretty much the entire term of President Obama, Andrea. He's failed to actually put in action what he says in words, which is that we have to take this deficit and debt seriously. 2 weeks ago, in the height of the budget resolution debate, he said, come on, guys, we got to be adults about this. We have to be serious. And then he comes out a week later, completely introduces $4 trillion in cuts, mainly to defense spending and tax increases, making up for that revenue. So I think the people who are observing this objectively are saying that he talks like he's serious, but he doesn't act like he's serious.
Yeah, Richard, in his speech last week, you know, the president talked a lot about deficit reduction, but then if you listen to what he really said, he said a lot about investments and a lot about spending. So I think conservatives, Tea Party members, Republicans, they're weary that all this talk of investments is going to come from that money that he's going to be using to, he says, tax the rich. So how is that really playing in a deficit reduction?
Well, I think the president's plan is pretty simple here. What he's saying is that we need to roll back some of the tax cuts that we created under George W. Bush. We also need to close some of the tax loopholes for big corporations and big oil companies, and in doing that, we'll be able to stabilize our economy by increasing our revenue and also cutting spending at the same time. We can't have a conversation about solving our debt issue without having a conversation about how you increase revenue into the government. And the only way you can do that is by finding some way to generate revenue. And the generation of revenue can be very simply done by increasing the taxes on the rich and the millionaires and billionaires in this country.
How much is fair? How much do you think is fair?
Well, the Federal Tax Center said the Tax Policy Center said it pretty clearly. This is the first time in American history that we were paying the lowest amount since 1955. We're paying the highest tax rate in this country is 35%. In the 1980s under Ronald Reagan, the highest tax rate was 50%. So clearly we're seeing here that we're paying a lot less in taxes. The president, I think, will have a marginal raise in taxes for the wealthier Americans, and at the same time keep the social net so he allows some more people to ascend into wealth through, moving up in social mobility.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
I mean, listen, Richard's point just highlights and illustrates the biggest schism in Washington and in the country right now, which is, he said, it's very simple to get revenue. Let's just raise the taxes, but that decreases economic growth. The way you get more revenue into the government is by increasing the base from which that revenue is coming. That means growing the economy, making capital flow freely in the free markets, in the private sector, job creation, wealth creation. That does not come from raising taxes, Andrea. And this is the exact danger we're running into that the S&P indicator shows. Democrats are just not serious. In 2007, at the height of the Bush tax cuts, the federal government collected more tax revenue in one year than it did in any year prior in its history of the IRS. Tax cuts create revenue because they grow the economy. And cutting spending is the only way we meaningfully make any change in this downward spiral that our economy is heading toward.
But it is a potent message what the White House is using, because as much as people want deficit reduction, they like free stuff too. Who doesn't? So why would Democrats come out now and position themselves to make a lot of cuts when they know it's just going to come back and bite them? Did they bait Republicans into doing that last week?
Not at all. In fact, you would think conventionally, if the rules were what they used to be, that was exactly right, which is why the Democrats used this tire class warfare argument that you heard, with all due respect to my colleague Richard, alluding to. Let those down in the middle class become rich by raising taxes on the rich. That's not going to happen. What's happening now is the American people are creating this call to reduce the deficit, to address the debt in a meaningful way, because they themselves have seen what bad shape our country has been under both Republican and Democrat administrations when we've totally neglected fiscal responsibility.